743.
Must qualify for enrollment. Results may vary.
1410 ESPN Radio, because talking about sports is cheaper than therapy. You want hot takes?
No, I'm not going to apologize to Ryan Day. Everything we said about Ryan Day up until the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, we welcome you in live here on a Thursday. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits. Wow. I mean, look, it's content season, no doubt about it. I mean, the regular season for college football and Championship Saturday has come and gone, but the storylines just keep hitting. We're going to talk about Sherrone Moore and the fallout there. Sherrone Moore out at Michigan after year two. But again, just another scandal. And by the way, because of the bad decisions that he has made has impacted those around him, and not just the football players in the program, but his family. I will not make light of those particular situations, but I'm also not going to sit here and act like this isn't just another issue, another black cloud that kind of hovers over, the Michigan program at this point. If this isn't an awakening for that university to clear itself, to shed itself, to rid itself of anything related to Coach Harbaugh, I have no clue what else would get their attention at this point, but we'll get into more of that coming up later. Keith Byers, he was at Urban Meyer's Hall of Fame induction. He was at the Hall of Fame, earlier this week. He was there for Urban's induction. He just flew back in today, so KB is going to pop in with us coming up here just around the corner. So we'll talk college football with him and get his thoughts on everything going on, especially, I'm curious his thoughts on Notre Dame and the temper tantrum that they've been throwing ever since Selection Sunday, was here. And I am curious his thoughts on of course, the fallout of what's going on in Michigan. Where do they go? Like, there's names out there, but like realistically, what makes sense for that team up north? Because right now, I mean, we thought Penn State was late in the game, nonetheless. Troy on Facebook says, at least this news about Michigan is true. Moore sounds like a blank in real life. Feel for his family. I thought he was a decent head coach, but I think Michigan will be fine in the long run with the better head coach as next. Troy, by the way, what do you mean about, at least this news about Michigan is true? Your weird, creepy little man obsession with that whole thing is not what you're blaming me for. It's you. Like, you need to get over that. And you sound like a guy that's just constantly making excuses for that program, which continues to embarrass you and everyone around it at this point. Oofa. But we'll get into that more coming up later. Again, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. I want to talk about Joe Burrow to open up. For years and years now, Joe Burrow has, when he got drafted by the Bengals, everyone kept doing this thing of, like, oh man, he's going to go to the Cincinnati Bengals, a bad franchise, and he's going to go behind that bad offensive line, and he's going to get hit and hit and hit and hit, and he is going to become the next Andrew Luck. I mean, we've heard that forced narrative for many, many years now, that Joe Burrow is going to be the next Andrew Luck. And I'm here to tell you, I've never once looked at Joe Burrow as being the next Andrew Luck. The difference between Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck is Andrew Luck has come out and shared that he just didn't love the game. All right, he didn't love the game enough to be able to continue doing what he does. We know that Joe Burrow loves the game of football. Now, how much does he love playing in Cincinnati? Now, that's starting to become a legit question after the recent press conference that happened yesterday. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. If you haven't had a chance to listen, here it is. Joe Burrow, right now with his team, mathematically in the playoff hunt, made it a lot about him and his feelings and his future when it comes to playing football. Take a listen. Is this a reason to be alarmed, Bengals fans, football fans in general? Take a listen.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for?
seem frustrating?
There's just a lot of things going on right now.
All related, personally.
All the above. Like you said, there's nothing. All we can do is focus week to week and try to win games. I don't think anybody's really thinking about the playoffs right now. That's within reach, but on our fingertips. So we just got to keep doing what we're doing and try to get better.
A needle to the eye, a hammer to the head, being hit by a bus. I mean, there are so many things that I could think of that are less painful than listening to your quarterback talk. I mean, what is so hard about getting a sentence out for that dude? I mean, it is painful listening to him talk. It's like he takes 10-second pauses between each word. How do you guys not find that annoying as can be? I mean, you guys find me annoying, and that's fine. But anyways, you hear that, and I don't know how that statement got started. I don't know if he was asked a question. I don't know what question was asked. All that was provided was that the response, the follow-up questions to Joe Burrow when he brought that up. But everyone that keeps trying to compare Joe Burrow to Andrew Luck, you hear this, and we're not going to listen to the whole thing again, but the very beginning is the most important part. This was a very weird message from Joe Burrow.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for?
For him to come out and say, for me to continue doing this, I mean,
if I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it.
It sounds like almost a threat to the franchise, right? Like, why else would Joe Burrow say this? And you can't feel good about it if you do hear him say it. And the reason I've never believed that Joe Burrow was going to be Andrew Luck is because a lot of people try to talk about how many times Andrew Luck got hit and making that comparison to Joe Burrow. They are very similar in that regard. Joe Burrow actually gets hit more. But the reason is I've always never felt that was going to be the case because Joe Burrow has always been a football lifer. He's always just seemed like a football, savant when it comes to that. He loves football. He doesn't sound like he loves football in that particular clip. Joe Burrow has had enough. Joe Burrow has had enough of the losing. Joe Burrow has had enough of the getting hit. Joe Burrow has had enough of a franchise that continues to embarrass itself by refusing to address issues. He had to go on a media-wide tour. I mean, we're coming up on 11 months since Joe Burrow went on that media rant at Super Bowl Media Row. If you guys remember, we're coming up on 10 months technically. 10 months ago, he went on that Super Bowl Media Row rant where he went on every show imaginable and would continue to almost beg the front office to pay T. Higgins, beg the front office to pay Jamar Chase, beg the front office to pay Mike Gesicki, of all people. And I said this in the beginning, and you guys just said I was a hater. I said, here's the problem with Joe Burrow's approach to that. It was all about the offense, when the offense isn't why they missed the playoffs last year or the year before. The ongoing issue, and it only continues to get worse, is the defense. And if Joe Burrow used his power for good, if Joe Burrow would approach the media with trying to put some of that backlash and pressure back on the front office to attack the offseason with the urgency to improve the defense the way he wanted them to attack the offseason to approach the offense, imagine how much better this team would be. I saw a Stephen A. Smith clip recently that talked about how bad he felt for Joe Burrow. And I'm like, I don't feel bad for Joe Burrow at all. Joe Burrow, there are many quarterbacks in the NFL who wish that they would always get what they ask for. Joe Burrow asked for Jamar Chase. He got it. He asked for T. Higgins. He got it. He asked for Mike Gesicki. He got it. He didn't ask for Noah Fant, but the front office said, hey, we got to give him every offensive weapon imaginable, apparently, and they got him Noah Fant. I have no clue why he is sounding so mopey for a guy that literally gets everything he wants. One of the highest paid quarterbacks in the National Football League, has 2 number 1 wide receivers. All right, they gave him 2 pass-catching tight ends. They spent $40+ million on this offensive line. They went out and got Orlando Brown Jr. over the last couple of years. This front office, you shouldn't be fans of this front office. I shouldn't be fans of this front office. But if there's one guy that should be a fan of this front office, it's the one guy that everything he has asked for, he has technically received. Now, that's also on the front office for allowing him to run their front office. But at the same time, it's not as if Joe Burrow doesn't understand football. If I understand that a front office puts all their money into the offensive side of the ball, that there's going to be repercussions on the defensive side of the ball. If low IQ Kinner and Dayton can figure that out, I'm pretty sure Joe Burrow knows that. So he knows the ramifications based on the history of the league and the way the business works, that by putting all your eggs in the offensive basket, that there's really no eggs to crack on the defensive side of the ball. And that's exactly what has happened. But do I believe that Joe Burrow is the next Andrew Luck? I do not. I do not. Andrew Luck just said he didn't love he had other interests. There was other passions of his. Joe Burrow doesn't have other passions. He doesn't have other interests. I mean, football is his life. So Joe Burrow is not becoming the next Andrew Luck. What Joe Burrow is becoming is the next Carson Palmer. And that's the one name. Like that name, everyone kept saying, man, I'm terrified of Joe Burrow becoming the next Andrew Luck. I'm like, that's not the quarterback that you should be fearing him becoming, because I think it would take a lot of layers for him to become Andrew Luck. I think what you need to be concerned about is a super talented quarterback that has offensive weapons, that is pleading with the front office to improve the roster. The front office ignores that. And then that quarterback becomes disgruntled, threatens retirement, and then ultimately gets traded. Because listen one more time, it's not that he doesn't want to play football anymore. He doesn't want to play football anymore if he's not having fun. And guess where he's not having fun? In Cincinnati.
If I want to keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for?
If it's not fun, then what am I doing it for, he says. It sounds like a threat to the front office. It sounds like, hey, Mike Brown, hey, Katie, right? Like, hey, Duke Tobin, if I'm not having fun, I don't even know why I'm doing this. So it's up to you guys to figure this out so I can go back to having fun again. Joe Burrow doesn't say things like that without having a reason to. I don't think he's just up there for event session. That is a subliminal message that is directly, relayed, that he wants relayed to that front office. It's one thing for you to hear that. It's one thing for me to hear it. But I wonder, when Mike Brown's sitting back, eating his Jell-O, watching Matlock, going to bed at 7 p.m., I wonder when he gets told about it the next morning, when he wakes up at 4 a.m. for his breakfast and his coffee, I wonder what his thoughts were. Probably, where am I? Who am I? Who's Joe Burrow? I mean, who knows what's going through Mike Brown's head. But hopefully Duke Tobin, hopefully Katie Blackburn, hopefully someone with the brain over there will listen to this and start to realize that, oh, man, we need to start attacking this with a little urgency, because Joe Burrow, that sounds like a guy that's defeated. That sounds like the next Carson Palmer. Forget the next Andrew Luck. We're looking at the next Carson Palmer. He's not Andrew Luck. He's Bengalized. Look, I don't know what's more embarrassing, my organization who can never find a quarterback, or your organization who finds a quarterback and just can't seem to ever figure it out. I don't know. 937-518-1410. Bengals fans, I do want to hear from you. Not so much about what I have to say, but I am curious. When you hear that quote, when you hear that soundbite, what was your immediate reaction? What were the feelings that went through you when you heard that quote? For him to continue doing this, he has to have fun, and he's not having fun right now. He said he needs to get back to having fun. That's a crazy drop for him. 937-518-1410. Your reaction. We'll get to your calls when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits.
Yeah, of course Kinner relates to Shedeur Sanders. He hasn't taken any first-team reps either. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio.
Gift card deals are everywhere this week. National
Jamar Chase spits on players. Kinner spits hot takes. The Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio. Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show on 1410 ESPN Radio and on the stream at wingam.com.
937-518-1410. Is Joe Burrow the next Andrew Luck? That's the big question that people are throwing around right now after Joe Burrow's concerning comments made to the media yesterday, claiming that he's just not having fun anymore. Take a listen.
If I keep doing this, I have to have fun doing it. I've been through a lot, and if it's not fun, then what am I doing it for?
Seem frustrated.
There's just a lot of things going on right now.
All related, personally.
All the above. Like you said, there's nothing. All we can do is focus week to week and try to win games. I don't think anybody's really thinking about the playoffs right now. That's within reach, but
Yeah, I can't listen to him talk. It's painful, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know how you guys hang on every word he says, but my goodness. It's like he's trying to figure out words. He doesn't know how to talk. I have no clue how you guys can listen to anything he says and drool over it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But for him to also say nobody's thinking about the playoffs, well, that's kind of the problem. That's kind of the problem. Look, he's defeated. He had an injury that was supposed to put him out to guys. If you think about it, the estimated timeline was supposed to be him coming back in mid-December, which is about right now. He came back about a month earlier, or at least was cleared a month earlier than anticipated. He came back on Thanksgiving night, looked very good on Thanksgiving night. Did not look very good against Buffalo. He looked good for the first, 3 quarters, but in the quarter that matters the most, he kind of fell apart with multiple turnovers, the lost fumble on the 2-point conversion attempt, and then just sounds absolutely broken in the post-game press conference and then when he addressed media yesterday. So, I don't know. Look, I think that this isn't just 2025 related. I think it's the last 3 years. I think, Joe Burrow, who strives to be in the upper tier of quarterbacks with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and guys like that, MVP level quarterbacks. I don't think even the biggest Bengals haters out there that, the club that I lead, apparently, I don't think any of us truly believe that Joe Burrow is not as talented as those guys. But the fact that he is not an MVP quarterback, the fact that he is not a Super Bowl champion yet, the fact that he's come close, but that's that was 3 years ago. That was forever ago. And now you see the young guys that have come into the league since Joe Burrow's been drafted who are surpassing him. I mean, the fact that Jalen Hurts, who was taken in the same draft as Joe Burrow, has been to more Super Bowls than Joe Burrow, has a Super Bowl championship, has a Super Bowl MVP. Guys are lapping Joe Burrow. They're Joe Burrow's just there standing there while everyone just runs past him. Jaden Daniels, if he doesn't have that big injury this year, Jaden Daniels had the trajectory line to surpass him. CJ Stroud is not nearly as talented as Joe Burrow. But it's kind of hard to sit there and be like, man, CJ Stroud's start to his career, making the playoffs back-to-back years, winning a playoff game in back-to-back years, and well on his way to getting back in his 3rd straight season. I mean, the consistency that he has faced and that he's been able to experience in Houston surpasses what we've seen from Joe Burrow. Now, again, Joe Burrow's won many playoff games. He's been to a Super Bowl, back-to-back AFC championships. But this is year number 6. And he has made the playoffs in 2 of those 6 years. It's one thing to I'm really trying to wrap my mind around how could be a team with Joe Burrow that's going to miss the playoffs for the 3rd straight year. But when you think about it, it's going to be the Bengals missing the playoffs for the 4th time in the last 6 years when you have Joe Burrow on this roster. That, to me, is an impressive feat. That to me, is an impressive feat when it's all said and done. But that's going to be the big thing that we keep an eye on moving forward. So when Joe Burrow says that, nobody's thinking about the playoffs, you could tell he had to walk that back a little bit because he starts talking about how that, they're at fingertip length away. No, they're not. They're mathematically still in the hunt. The Browns have been eliminated from playoff contention. They're 3-10 on the season. The Bengals have one more win than the Browns. The Bengals are on the cusp of being eliminated from playoff contention as well. The Bengals are 2 games behind the Ravens for 2nd place in that division, and they are 3 games back of the Steelers for 1st. And they have 4 games remaining. They have the Ravens at home, and they have the Cardinals at home, and then they're at the Dolphins on the 21st, and then they close out the regular season against Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns. 4 games. The Bengals have to win these last 4 games. They will finish under 500. They will finish under 500 this year. Even if they win these last 4, they will finish at 8-9. 3 straight seasons of missing the playoffs, 3 straight seasons of a 9-8 record. Man, oh man. Or at least 2 straight seasons of 9-8, and this would be an 8-9 record. But yeah, you could feel and hear just the defeat in his voice. It's just he's defeated. He's given up, and that's a scary thing if you're a Bengals fan, because you always felt like you had a chance when he's out there. And I don't think this is any longer about Joe Burrow against the opponent that week. I think this is slowly turning into Joe Burrow against his front office. And I stated before, like, the worst thing that can happen for the Bengals, and I said this when it was announced that he was coming back on Thanksgiving, I said the worst thing that can happen for the Bengals is Joe Burrow coming back and them starting to win games. If the Bengals finish this season at 9-8 for the 3rd straight season, okay, that's where the front office would sit back and say, well, we were 2-0 when Joe Burrow played the first 2 games of the season. We lost a lot of games when he was out, and then he comes back, and then we win 5 of our last 6. I mean, that means we won 7 of 8 games with Joe Burrow at quarterback. I'd say that, hey, as long as we have Joe Burrow, we're going to have a chance to win games and make the playoffs. That's a dangerous thing for that front office. You don't want to give them any built-in excuses to not be aggressive in the offseason. I mean, you think about the 2 professional teams in Cincinnati right now. They both have a generational star. The Reds have Elly Cruz in a short window of time to compete with him. The Bengals have had Joe Burrow for 6 years now, and outside of that Super Bowl appearance, which isn't a small thing by any means, but it was long ago, and they have definitively gotten worse and worse and worse since then, with no signs of getting back to that. There's nothing you could trust. This team doesn't draft well. They don't sign free agents well. They don't develop. So I'm looking at the Reds and the Bengals. I'm like, okay, which of these 2 is wasting their star player more? I think we need to see one more season of the Reds to be able to make an equal comparison of who's wasting who more. But it's really hard to say it's not the Bengals when you talk about the fact that you've had Joe Burrow for 6 years, and this is about to be the 4th time you've missed the playoffs in that span. Most people dream of getting their franchise quarterback because at the very least, I mean, you're going to make the playoffs 80 to 90% of the time that individual is there. I mean, and look, you're not going to make it every year. The Chiefs are knocking on the door with Patrick Mahomes, who many have said is the best quarterback ever, right? Surpassing Tom Brady. They're going to miss the playoffs this year. The Ravens with Lamar Jackson going to probably miss the playoffs this year. Really good quarterbacks are going to miss the playoffs this year. But, I mean, it's a crazy thing to think of that when the playoffs kick off here in a month, that there could be no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson, no Patrick Mahomes. And Mac Jones will have a chance to move up that list. I never finished that point earlier. My point earlier was that, man, when you think about it, it looked like it was a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes NFL with all the other quarterbacks filling in. But then all of a sudden, you get Jalen Hurts in there with the Super Bowl MVP. Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to be something special. I mean, as a rookie, leads Washington to the NFC Championship game. When he's healthy and the Commanders get that right, they're going to be a threat every year. Right, and then you look at, Drake May now with the Patriots, best record in football. Like, that's a guy that has a real chance. Him and Josh Allen, one of those 2 has a legitimate shot to jump and pounce on the AFC right now with Lamar Jackson and his team struggling, Joe Burrow not in the picture, and Patrick Mahomes falling out of the picture. All these quarterbacks continue to move up the ranks while Joe Burrow stays put. No progression. He's not getting worse. He's just not moving forward amongst his career goals. So when he's talking about fear of not, or when he's talking about the absence of having fun, that's a direct reflection of the organization. You have taken his smile. You have taken the fun away from a children's game in football that you used to see the passion, the confidence. I mean, he used to be so confident that it would drive me up the wall. Of course, everything he does drives me up the wall, as you guys know, but he was almost too confident for me. He's not too confident for anybody right now. That sounds like a guy that is as defeated could be. 937-518-1410, the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Damon Hahn says Joe Burrow has buyer's remorse. The Bengals don't have buyer's remorse, but you're right. I mean, he could have, signer's remorse, if you will, by signing that extension to stay in Cincinnati. Who knows? Ron Howard, what up, Ron? He's regretting pushing for the big money signings. He should not regret pushing the organization to spend money on its star players. What he should have, however, been thinking about was less about what makes his job more fun. Winning is fun. Throwing a ton of yards and throwing it up there for Jamar Chase is fun if you're winning games. But when you're not winning games, it's not that fun. So Joe Burrow needs to attack this offseason by putting the pressure on the front office to spend money on the defense. And I don't know, hit on a draft pick or two. That would kind of be nice, don't you think? Dennis Snyder on Facebook says he would look pretty good in a Colts uniform, talking about Joe Burrow. And that's how this show started today. With hearing that quote, everyone's saying he's the next Andrew Luck. I don't think he's the next Andrew Luck. I think he's the next Carson Palmer. He's the next Bengalized quarterback, the next quarterback that has all the talent in the world, that is tired of the way this front office operates, tired of underachieving, and tired of not accomplishing what he knows and what we all know that this team is technically capable of accomplishing if the front office can get out of their own way. Rob on YouTube says getting his house broken into and getting exposed with those different women didn't help him either. No, I mean, look, anyone that gets their house broken into, I mean, the sense of violation in that, and look, I don't know what he's hiding. By the way, I have no clue what's going on in him in his personal life with his women or his employees or whatever he calls them, and that's not a shot. That's it's not. Some say it's his girlfriend. He calls her his employee. I mean, if I call my wife that, I'm going to get smacked in the face. So I'm just saying, I don't know what kind of operation he runs over there. But again, we all have stuff going on in our lives, and we have a lot more stressful and a lot less fun jobs to go to help balance out our stress and work life. Oh man, I'm having personal issues and I'm playing football, making $55 million a year. Everyone feels sorry for me. I don't. Go win football games. Go beg your front office to get a defense. Do that. Go back to having fun, and you go back to being happy. It's as simple as that. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio, 937-518-1410. Let's, Sharon Moore fired, no longer the head coach for that team up north. And of course, it's not just a simple firing. I mean, he did get fired with cause, of course, but it's the stuff that went on for the remainder of the night that has everybody a little uncomfortable talking about everything that's kind of going on about this situation. Just another scandal. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse for that team up north. And this is just one of many issues that program is facing at the moment. We'll be right back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers.
Now, back to the Justin Kinner Show, right here on ESPN Dayton, 1410 Wing AM.
College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers, he's going to join us coming up here just around the corner. KB, of course, coming back from the Hall of Fame. He went to support Urban Meyer during Urban Meyer's induction into the Hall of Fame, of course. So he's going to come in and hang out with us. He said he had a chance to talk to a couple of the College Football Playoff Committee members while he was down there. So he said he's excited to come in to share something. I'm curious what it is. He seems fired up about it. I tell you, what a week for college football. Some good, some bad. I think there's a lot of interesting things that have spilled out from college football this week that I think just reminds us of how corrupt and just how horrible this sport could be at times. And this isn't about the Sherrone Moore situation. We'll get to that. But, like, I'm still trying to figure out why I'm still trying to figure out how it's possible that Notre Dame was able to somehow work out some memorandum of understanding that grants the Irish preferential playoff access starting next year. So basically, if they finish ranked in the top 12 in any capacity, they are guaranteed a playoff spot. So that doesn't make sense. So, like, all this screaming, bitching, and moaning and crying because we deserve to be in, but yet next year you won't deserve to be in, but you'll just be forced in because you finished in the top 12 in some capacity. Like that's the problem that I have. I have no clue. Like this is the stuff I want to know. Like, how is that even possible that was even being able to be negotiated on? That's like saying, okay, the Bengals, who have missed the playoffs the last 2 years, winning 9 games. They've been 9-8 the last 2 years. That's like the Bengals working out a provision to say, listen, we finished 9-8 the last 2 years. We've missed the playoffs the last 2 years, finishing 9-8. We want a provision, a memorandum, understanding a provision that anytime we as the Bengals finish with 9 wins, we are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. And then the NFL saying, yeah, that seems fair. That seems stupid. And that's exactly what's happening here with this. Now, a lot of you are saying, well, if you finish in the top 12, you're probably in the playoff anyways. Well, you would think. The team, so basically, I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like if you finish in the top 10, like I'm looking at it now, any team that has finished in the top 10 has been guaranteed a playoff spot. Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech, Oregon, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Miami, all in. But you would think, oh, it's a 12-team playoff. Well, the top 12 teams would get into the playoffs then, right? Well, Notre Dame's sitting at 11, BYU sitting at 12. BYU and Notre Dame both not making the playoffs. Tulane is ranked 20th in the country. They're in the playoff. James Madison finished in the top 25. They're ranked 24th. So you're ranked 11th and you're ranked 12th. You don't make the playoff. You're ranked 20th and you're ranked 24th. You make the playoff. This is stupid. I understand some of the frustration amongst Notre Dame fans and others because none of this just makes any sense. Why are we doing it? And like, this is because of the temper tantrum that the committee's through or that the conference is through because of guaranteed playoff spots for certain conferences. There are years, especially in the final years of those Pac-12 years, where you're not good enough to make the playoffs. There's sometimes a conference isn't good. I mean, last year, Arizona State last year, I know it was in the Pac-12, but Arizona State got a first-round bye last year. Are you kidding? What are we doing? Doesn't make sense. But so I bring this up because Notre Dame finished number 11 right now. In the final playoff rankings, they came in at number 11. Okay. And I say this because if that provision was into effect this year, the Notre Dame would have been guaranteed a spot in. The hell with Tulane, the hell with James Madison, who I'm not a big fan of being in the playoffs to begin with, but the hell with them because, well, we got to force Notre Dame in because they finished number 11 or 12. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. What Troy says, Duke also would be in next year based on the 2026 rules. And I do agree. Jason Fitz, we had him on yesterday, and the one thing he said too is what every conference needs to do is just do a better job of trying to figure out what your tiebreakers are and aligning those correctly to guarantee you that you get your best teams in there. Miami should have been in the ACC championship game, but they weren't. Duke was. Ryan Strauss on Facebook says, number 1, top 12 guaranteed playoff spot. Number 2, go get to pick their schedule. Number 3, don't have to share any college. Oh, yeah. So he's weighing in on all of this. Ryan Strauss talking about all the things he's frustrated with when it comes to Notre Dame. They get a if they finish in the top 12, they're guaranteed a playoff spot. All right. They get to pick their schedule. I mean, they literally get to pick their schedule. I mean, this is why I've been going at it with Notre Dame fans for days now. And what they can't seem to comprehend is, well, Ohio State didn't win their Big Ten championship and they're in. Like, you realize that there's multiple layers to this. But when you're in a conference, you don't get to pick the teams that you play in your conference. The conference picks that. I mean, you get to kind of, when they were reshifting some stuff, you got to pick your rivalries that you wanted to keep. But overall, Ohio State, like, they're not going to play Penn State for the next couple of years. Even if they wanted to, they can't play Penn State the next couple of years. Unless they run into each other in the playoff for the conference championship game. But Notre Dame, they just get to go out and, we play Big Ten schools and ACC schools and SEC schools. And yes, you did a great job of going to pick the bottom of the barrel. You cherry-picked the bottom of each conference. You picked the worst teams in the SEC, the worst teams in the Big Ten, and of course, the crappy ACC. And then you brag about your dominating 10-game stretch. And then just overlook the fact that the only good teams you played, you weren't good enough to beat them. Give me a break. Andrew Young says, we all know there will be more teams next year, so it won't matter top 12 or not. Possibly. I would love to see a playoff. Like, I actually give the committee a lot of credit. Not really the committee, college football. I don't even know who makes these decisions. But the college football playoff, the fact that they went 9 straight years without making any changes is crazy. We made it 9 years of the 14 playoff without any changes. That's pretty dang impressive, if you ask me, considering they already made drastic changes after year 1 of the playoff. I would be really annoyed if, we can't keep changing the playoff every time one of these entitled, snobby-ass teams doesn't get their way. Oh, Notre Dame didn't get their way, so we have to make a change for next year's playoff. Next year, there'll be some other team that misses it, and we'll have to make a change for that team. Alabama didn't make it last year. Heaven forbid Alabama missed the playoffs 2 straight years. So we have to stop, not we, but the committee has to stop bowing down to these programs. But that's the leverage that these programs have. But Notre Dame is starting to lose a little of that leverage. I found this to be interesting. This came out earlier today as well, and I've been praying for days like this. According to Yahoo Sports, Dan Wolken with the Yahoo Sports, after learning, there's a lot of teams who are pissed off about the memorandum of understanding that grants the Irish preferential playoff access starting next year. So Yahoo Sports, Dan Wolken says that after learning of Notre Dame's memorandum of understanding, that there are a lot of angry athletic directors in other leagues that are threatening to freeze Notre Dame out of future schedules. So if they're already getting preferential treatment, they don't have to split their winnings, their money with anybody else. They're going to throw the other commissioners of these conferences under the bus. To take a shot at the ACC after they bailed them out multiple times is absolutely asinine to me. But good for these schools. I want Ohio State, don't schedule them again. Michigan, don't schedule. Stop scheduling Notre Dame. Freeze them out. Because that's really all it's going to take. And it might backfire because then they'll just play all the crap-ass teams in each conference like they did this year and like they'll do next year. And then there'll be one lost team every year, but they'll get exposed and get knocked out in the first round. I kind of wish that they made it just so I could watch them lose playing another good team again. But I love this. This is why I was angry. College football screwed up the year of COVID. When each conference went to division only, Big Ten could only play Big Ten. Big 12 could only play Big 12, and SEC and ACC, so on and so on. That put Notre Dame in a bind because, Notre Dame, they're not in a conference. So you can't do a conference only if you're Notre Dame because you're not in a conference. But all the other conferences went conference only. So then the ACC worked out a deal with Notre Dame that they would be a part of ACC football for that year. And it ticked me off because the ACC had leverage there. Notre Dame, you want to play football this year? That was like the ACC isn't very good, but that was the one time that they had leverage to look at Notre Dame and say, if you don't sign into our conference, if you don't join our conference, you're just not going to have a season in 2020. And if you're willing to sit out a whole season, more power to you. But if you really want to play, which I know you do, you need to join our conference, and we'll let you join our conference, but you need to sign for multiple years. And the ACC let them off the hook. The ACC got 1 year with them, and that's it. And when that happened, that was the prime opportunity right there to strong-arm Notre Dame. But Notre Dame, they have smart people in their athletics department, and they outsmarted the dumb ACC. So the ACC screwed that up. The ACC screwed that up. A lot of those conferences did. They should have approached Notre Dame and said, we'll let you in our conference so you can play conference games this year. But if you do not, but the only way to do that is you need to sign on for X amount of years, not 1 year. Not 1 year. And that's ultimately what happened when it was all said and done. Rob Panel on YouTube says, let's see if they can't make 12 next season. What would be said then? I mean, I'm all about the chaos. I'm all about the chaos as far as that goes, as far as what does Notre Dame, have next season from a football schedule standpoint. Notre Dame next year, they'll be playing. I mean, the schedule next year for Notre Dame, guys, it's embarrassing. They're going to play at Lambeau Field against Wisconsin. I mean, Luke Fickell's been horrible at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's horrible. They're going to play the Rice Owls. Ooh, that's at home. They're going to play Michigan State at home. They're going to play Purdue at home. With all these coaching changes, I can't believe Bill Belichick, of all people, kept his job. But Bill Belichick in North Carolina will welcome in Notre Dame next year. Navy, they will play the Hurricanes at home. Boston College, real challenge there. SMU, Syracuse, Stanford, USC, they're probably going to lose that one. Like, this is one of those things where that schedule is so bad next year that it almost makes Miami a must-win. This could be, they could find themselves next year in the same boat where they're going to have 2 losses. They could lose to USC. And the USC should be good next year. Miami could be solid. But if Miami regresses and takes a major step back and they're not very good, you're just going to beat up on a bunch of nobodies. North Carolina, Purdue, Michigan State, the Rice Owls, Boston College, Syracuse. And yet, after looking at that schedule, this is how little confidence that their athletics department has for their program, because that athletics department looks at the schedule that they've put together for the next couple of years and says, we look at this crap-ass schedule and we still don't feel confident enough that we could win to get into the playoff, even with this bad schedule. So we need to finagle some kind of provision that when we lose 2 or 3 games and finish in the top 12, that we're guaranteed a playoff spot. Give me a break. Ron Howard, need to make it mandatory to qualify for playoffs, required amount of games played. Everyone plays the same amount of games, Ron. I think that they at some point, the committee just needs to look at Notre Dame and say, you got to join the conference. You got to join the conference. Well, they don't need to join the conference. Well, they may need to. Give them a need. Give them a reason. And I think a lot of these schools have had enough of the preferential treatment that Notre Dame is getting. And if you're just joining us, by the way, yes, I'm still talking Notre Dame. I know I said yesterday's show I wouldn't, but more information came out that there are so many athletic directors and commissioners of these conferences that are just appalled at the childish behavior of the program at Notre Dame. And then they were even more appalled when they found out that Notre Dame is getting a memorandum of understanding that grants the Irish preferential playoff access next year, stating that if they finish in the top 12, they're guaranteed a playoff spot. Now you're saying, well, it's a 12-team playoff. Wouldn't they be in anyways? BYU finished 12th. Notre Dame finished 11th this year. Both missed the playoff. When you look at the standings from last year, how that worked out, SMU and Ole Miss both, finished 11 and 12. BYU, finished 12, didn't make the playoff. Clemson, all that. Clemson made the play. It's crazy to me. Clemson finished 14th in the final college football playoff rankings last year, made the playoffs. So the rankings don't matter. The rankings are the problem. Because imagine if the NCAA tournament came out and said March Madness rankings, because you have the AP top 25. That's what we pay attention to. In college basketball, it's just the AP rankings. Now, a lot of guys will pay attention to Ken Pom. All right, you'll pay attention to a lot of these other, Sagarin and some of these others. But ultimately, it's the AP rankings that we all pay attention to. If Dayton cracks the top 25, we're talking about the AP. Think about college basketball. College basketball, we all gather around on Selection Sunday, and bam, they throw out the bracket. And it's not like, well, last week you had Dayton as a 10 seed, and now you have them as a 14 seed in the very next week, and nothing changed. Why would that move? That would be the predicament that you'd put yourself in. So March Madness on Selection Sunday, that's the first time you get told, here's who's in, here's who's out. Imagine if March Madness did a March Madness rankings 4 weeks out from Selection Sunday before you even get to conference championship week. That would create a whole other level of chaos, and that's what's happened. If there is any changes to the playoff next year, it needs to be not to the format, but it needs to be a change in regards to stop having those weekly rankings release shows. Let the AP put out their ranking each week, just like college basketball, and then we'll all gather on Selection Sunday and I'll be surprised. Now, knowing the way the crybabies at Notre Dame operate, they'll probably still find ways to complain and bitch, moan, and complain and do all the stuff that they've been doing all week. All right. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, 1410 ESPN Radio, 937-518-1410. Hour number 2, Keith Byers joins us next.
Just for only $39.99. Zero three.
And spirits. I'm Justin Kinner, College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers. We are off and rolling here on a Thursday. Keith, you flew back in.
Fresh off an airplane from Viva Las Vegas.
What you have going on in Vegas? The Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
right?
the College Football Hall of Fame. Another Buckeye went in. Last year, Chris Ward went in as a player. This year, Urban Meyer goes in as a coach. And I'm saying he's going in as a Buckeye, even though it was some Utah people there, Bowling Green, and some Florida, but it was clearly a Buckeye night for Urban Meyer. Yeah, got a chance to spend some time with Ross Brook, Archie Griffin, of course, and so it was good to be at the dinner and see Michael Vick. Got a chance to congratulate him, and he was surprised to see me. He saw my wife earlier that day in the store. And on my social media, I posted a couple of pictures. And one of my guys said, "Man, no Nick Saban?" I said, "He was there."
Oh, you don't take a picture with Nick Saban?
I don't want a picture with Nick Saban.
Fair
Nick
enough.
Saban was sitting on the dais. Is Urban Meyer to his left, Michael Vick to his right. So I went to Urban. "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" "Excuse me." "Hey, Vic, what's up, Mike?" So I don't really have much to say to Nick Saban. I don't dislike him. It's just not one of my guys. And
Fair enough.
there it is. So it wasn't no disrespect. But the guy who asked me about is an Alabama fan. So, so he's not going to get no pictures with me and Nick Saban unless I surprise him next year. But I did see Barry Switzer. Barry Switzer, I was got to spend a little time with him. And I had to tell him, I got a cousin who lives in Georgia. And he's a diehard Oklahoma Sooner. He lives in Georgia, but he's an Oklahoma Sooner fan. Not a Buckeye. I'm his first cousin, but so that was good. It was a great night. They College Football Hall of Fame, the National Football Foundation. They do a tremendous job of that dinner. So it is good to be able to go out there and support, and to be there and play some golf. While I was out there, that also helps. And I got to see one of my teammates from the past, Randall Cunningham.
I saw you post that.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't seen Randall in a couple of years. We talk all the time on the phone, but I was in Vegas in the spring, and Randall's a pastor now. He's got his own church, and I was going to surprise him. Then the last minute said, "No, just call Randall, tell him you're coming." And he was out of town that weekend, so I didn't get to hear. I was like, "Oh, it would have been a surprise."
Jesus,
Yeah, so I went by his church on Monday, and we went to dinner, and it's good to to catch up with my teammate. He's a great friend of mine, and time and distance, sometimes keeps us separated, but we are forever linked, and it's like we was back in the locker room. Monday night we were sitting there, cracking jokes on each other and over dinner, just having a good time. So it's a good fellowship. So one of the things that the College Football Foundation, they don't come out and say, is that it's a little political, because they try to spread around. They got to cover 136 Division I programs and Division II, and so it's one of those big dinners.
Oh, I think you were talking like Trump or talking like Kamala. I didn't know you know Biden. I didn't know.
No,
not that political.
Not
oh,
political.
okay.
Whereas with political, where
Keith.
it would be every week. I mean, not every year.
Yeah.
It'll be which Buckeye is going in, which somebody from Alabama,
because their numbers don't get better or worse.
USC.
Yeah.
I mean, so we have a lot of guys, Buckeyes that will someday make the College Football Hall of Fame, but otherwise we can't get them all in the same year. So we didn't get a player in 25. We got one in 24, coach in 25. So I'm expecting, a player, when the ballots and the voting comes out in 26. And if we don't get one in 26, we'll certainly have one in 27. I mean, you just think of all the great Buckeyes. What are the prerequisites? You have to be first-team All-American. And so that hurts some of our previous quarterbacks in the future who weren't first-team All-American but were first-round draft picks, like C.J. Stroud, Justin Fields, just to name a few. But just think back even from the 80s, we have like Pepper Johnson is not in the Hall of Fame yet, linebacker. Then you get to the 90s, Sonny Styles. No, not Sonny. Lorenzo Styles. Yep. Sean Springs, Terry Glenn, just to name a few.
You played with Terry 1 year at the Patriots, right?
Yes.
Was that the year you went to the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl year.
He was a rookie.
Yeah, actually
right?
2 years with the Patriots. Yeah. Well, yeah, Terry was a rookie. And I was once I got there, Parcells said, you got to be the big brother for your Buckeye buddy. Your Buckeye friend. He was a rookie. And, so me and Terry sat next to each other on all the flights, road games, and just a tremendous guy, and died tragically in a car accident. But, he's when they talk about Ohio State, today's wide receiver and they stays Chris Carter, and then they skip the 90s. Only one person from the 80s is Chris Carter, and they skip the 90s and go straight to the 2000s, and but their line of Ohio State wide receivers is longer than a lot of people give it credit for, other than the last 5, 6, 7 years.
Well, I mean, Brian Hartline's the only reason Ohio State ever has wide receivers. That's what they.
That's what they say.
That's what they say on the street.
I mean,
so
did they recruit Ted Ginn Jr.?
Oh, absolutely.
And San Antonio Holmes while he was there. He was recruiting them.
I mean, Chris Carter still, he dedicates his Hall of Fame career to, him as far as
that's right.
So.
That's right. Yeah.
No, so all week while you were gone, I mean, we'll get into the Michigan side coming up in a moment, but all week I have been battling Notre Dame fans. I put out my list yesterday of the top 5 biggest college football playoff screw jobs, like the teams that have been screwed over the most in the eyes of fans, throughout the college football playoff era. I don't view Notre Dame as being screwed over this year. I don't view that like they were a playoff contender,
right?
But they were 10-2. All 10 wins were against teams outside of the top 15. The two good teams that they did play, they lost to. They don't play in a conference. They didn't even get to a conference championship game. This isn't me being pro Alabama, pro anything. And this is what I got tired of. Well, what about Alabama? What about I'm like, it's not about them. It's about your resume.
Yeah,
Your resume.
stay on topic.
Yeah.
We're talking about Notre Dame right now.
Because we could bury Alabama, but Alabama went to Georgia and has a win at Georgia. They have a win against Vanderbilt. They have top 25 wins. They have 3 losses. I'm not dismissing that, but they had a balance of results, good and bad. You just have bad. You don't have good results. You beat up on bad teams. That doesn't get you anywhere when it comes to the resume for playoffs.
No, I totally agree. I mean, Alabama has 3 losses in 13 games. Notre Dame has 2 losses in 12 games. Play a 13th game and see if you win or lose that particular game if you want to try to get into the Alabama thing. But go back to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure when you're not in a conference. You know, you need to join a conference. You're, ACC light. You know, all your other sports are at ACC. You know, your basketball team is an ACC, your softball team and our baseball team. But the football team, we're going to hold back on this because we want to keep all the money, because that big money that football generates. And one of my things, when in doubt, follow the money. But it makes sense, but it don't, it makes Notre Dame sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make everybody else football sense. So when it comes down to this, and if I'm Notre Dame, I would have listened to what Keith Byers said in September when they start 0-2. When Notre Dame started 0-2, I told you, man, it's going to be hard for them to make the playoffs. I see 3 things that has to happen for Notre Dame to have a chance to make the playoffs. After starting 0-2, I said they got to run the table. They got to go 10-2, which they did. They ran the table. They need Texas A&M, who beat them on the last play of the game, to win the SEC. That did not happen. They needed Miami, who they lost to win the ACC. That didn't happen. That would have at least helped strengthen.
Yeah.
They said we lost to 2 conference champions. And one other Hail Mary I tried to throw them was USC needed to win the Big Ten. That didn't happen. Because then the rest of their games on the schedule, because that's their best quality win, is against USC.
Yep.
Notre Dame, what are you talking about? USC finished, 4th in the Big Ten? You don't have any big time wins other than USC, who finished 4th. Your resume is simply not strong enough. If you was in a conference, if they was in the ACC, I gotta believe they would have. I'm not looking at it right now. I have to think they would have qualified for the championship game. Yes, they would. Yeah, they would have qualified because it was Duke and Virginia. It would have been Duke and, I don't know if they would have qualified. Yeah, they would have been. It would have been Duke and Notre Dame, because Notre Dame lost in a non-conference game. Other than Texas A&M was a non-conference. So
I'm pulling that up now just to get a better view of it. But yeah,
no, it would have been Miami. It would have been a rematch. Probably would have been Miami and Virginia, or Miami and Notre Dame.
Yeah, but the problem is, and a lot of people were criticizing the ACC, which not from a Notre Dame perspective, but they didn't even put their best foot forward as far as putting their best teams in there. Luckily, they got Miami in, but Miami should have been in the ACC championship game, but because of the tiebreaker, it didn't result in that. Miami's the best team in the ACC, and they didn't even play in their ACC championship because of the mathematical tiebreakers that excluded them. Miami, a 2-loss team or whatever, but Virginia 10-3. They're a 3-loss team as well. You talked about Duke. I mean, they won that tiebreaker in there. But yeah, like all of that, just a mess. Just a complete mess. They need to find a way to get the best, your best teams into that championship game. And, we saw that this year with the Big Ten.
Yeah, we did see that this year with the Big Ten. I mean, if you're an Oregon fan, you were happy that you weren't in that game, because you still, only thing that hurt Oregon is they weren't eligible to get a bye.
Yeah.
So they didn't get a bye, but they definitely made the playoffs. So that was good. And then, the Big Ten, came down to 2 teams that would, I commend the committee for not dropping either one of them below 2, and emotionally, I said they need to go down to the loser needs to go to 3. I was upset at my Buckeyes.
Georgia
I had
2.
Georgia number 2 on my ballot and Buckeyes 3. But I've taken a couple of days to think about it. It was right. It was a 3-point loss, in a semi-neutral, facility. Yeah, it was a good game. It was a good game. Didn't go our way. Indiana was a better team that night. They won, and that's why they remained. They got to move up to number one, and we just flip-flopped. We were number two.
Yeah,
so I give the committee credit for that.
And Notre Dame fans were trying to take shots at Ohio State, and I said, look, I don't think their schedule was that great, but they did put Texas in their non-con, and non-con is something that you play in.
Which was the SEC.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's SEC opponent was A&M. They lost. The Buckeyes won.
So I said, okay, you beat Texas in the non-con. As a Buckeye fan, I'm not going to do the homer thing and talk about how tough the schedule was this year. Ended up not. Washington wasn't as good as we thought. Penn State took some step back.
But they were ranked teams when we played them.
Yeah, but then
not Penn State, but Washington was.
Yeah. But I said, you beat Michigan and you beat Texas. And you were undefeated, and you were in your Big Ten championship game, and your only loss was by 3 to now the number 1 team in the country. I don't think Notre Dame fans are making the point that they think that they're making. They're only making our point even stronger as far as that goes. My big problem with it all, though, was the temper tantrum that was thrown after. You're allowed to be upset. Be upset that you didn't make the playoff. But then to just say, well, we're not going to play in our bowl game.
Take my ball and go home.
That's a problem. And I don't think that's a full Marcus Freeman decision, but I'm also disappointed that he
Marcus Freeman had no part of that decision. If he'd get some pushback, he'd have been out. He'd be sitting next to Sharon Moore right now.
Or he'd be replacing Sharon Moore.
Right, maybe, yeah. Unbelievable.
But if you're a player, you back to your playing days, you're bummed if you don't make the playoff. No, the playoff wasn't around when you played, but if you're mad that you didn't make the playoff, but your coach came in and said, guys, no, we didn't make the playoff. This sucks. We're so mad. We're just not even going to play in a bowl game. What would your response as a player be? You'd have a problem with that, right?
I have a big problem. You want to play in bowl games. You don't want to be one of the y'all don't even make a bowl. Yes, I mean, and really the powers that be at Notre Dame are penalizing, the team. What about some of those seniors that this is their last hurrah? If I know that was going to be my last game, I would have approached it differently. They're going to still get the same maximum effort, but to get, shortchanged on your last time of playing a college football game, that's just asinine. My last game as a collegian was in the Citrus Bowl against BYU. I had a broken foot. I knew that was my last game I was ever going to play with Ohio State. And I said, I got to put this jersey on one more time. I'm going to play till I can't play no more. Hopefully I make 4 quarters. I didn't make a quarter. But, I stepped out there. I got to, wear the scarlet and gray one more time. Bad foot and all. And to take that away from those Notre Dame seniors, the guys are out of eligibility. It was like, wait a minute, I thought I had one more game. We didn't get the playoffs. But I certainly was going to, play in the bowl game. No. And that's just terrible. And the decision hurts today, but it's going to hurt even more 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line for those players who didn't get to play in their last game. Look, it's been 40 years since my last Ohio State game. Yet you see how quickly I remember that. Now, if I couldn't play in that last game because there was no way I could have got on the field, okay, I could handle a lot better. But I'm like, I can dress. I don't have no cast on my foot. Let's just let me in here for 1 second. Okay. That's priceless. And I don't have no regrets in making that decision, step on that field one more time, just, lace up the shoulder pads, but, buckle up my chin strap. Because, you represent your school, is with all you got. And to rob those players from Notre Dame that opportunity, I think president on down and the board of trustees on down, that's just terrible. So Marcus has no say in that. And, I'm just saying, by the time he got to the head football coach, them decisions were been made. Probably it was made before the even athletic director heard about it.
And it's annoying, too, because Ohio State didn't want to play Missouri a few years ago, but they played it.
Right.
Florida State, I didn't like how they handled their tantrum after being left out, but they were undefeated Power 5 champions. They still played in their bowl game, and they went and got their behinds kicked, but they knew they were going to get their behinds kicked. All their players basically opted out, but they still played anyways. Like, that's what you do. I thought this was a temper tantrum.
I talked about one phase. I talked about the seniors. What about the freshmen, the incomers? They need some experience.
Practice time. It doesn't go against their eligibility.
It doesn't go against their. You got to see what you got. Put those guys in the game. So that was just a poor decision, by Notre Dame. And then what about the host city? They would have went to the Pop-Tart game?
Pop-Tart Bowl, yep.
In Orlando. They like, oh man, we didn't. They're hoping, we want to sell our tickets too. Notre Dame is going to bring a lot of bodies to the game, whether it's a non-playoff game or not. People want to see Notre Dame. I mean,
against BYU.
Against BYU, they mad that wait a minute, BYU is ranked ahead of us too. Yeah, y'all BYU is the first out. You're the second out. Go out there and dominate. You didn't dominate your last 10 games. Go in, if I'm BYU, I'm like, hey, we only lost 2 games to the same team. They should be the ones hollering at Alabama or any other team that's on the fringe. Yet they aren't. Do like Ohio State and Indiana did. Go win all 12 games and then qualify for the playoffs. Notre Dame, my decision is still the same. Join a conference, and all the other conferences boycott Notre Dame until they join the conference. I wouldn't even play them. So Purdue need to take them off their schedule. Pittsburgh need to take them off their schedule. North Carolina State, who are the teams they play from the ACC, take them off. Miami, don't play them anymore until they join the conference. And now, if you're the ACC, will you take Notre Dame? Where they just badmouth you? It said, I'm not going to forget this one alone. This stings. I'm going to remember this. Because, I don't know if I want you.
Because they defended a team that's actually in their conference versus a team that just is pretending to be in their conference. It's, they're like a friends with benefits. They're not married.
Yeah.
They're just their friends.
Exactly.
And it ain't beneficial to them no more.
No.
So there you go. Justin Kinner, Keith Byers, 1410 ESPN Radio. Not the only big topic and storyline in college football. That team up north looking for a new head coach. What in the world happened? We'll discuss when we come back.